Welcome back, guys, to Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, where now we move on to Juniper Woods' testimony, as she's now been implicated in the crime of attacking Apollo Justice. With that said, her testimony has 6 parts, one seemingly added by the pressing that we've currently done, but now we look for a presenting option. And there was a point in time where her eyes got kind of shifty around what I'd say was the first statement. That said, the first statement I think has actually moved to this statement now, where she still looks very shifty. Like she's hiding something on the fact that she was called back to this courtroom to give testimony. However, we have nothing to present on those purposes at this point in time. So I'm looking at this statement specifically. It's the only one with kind of like facts or evidence that we maybe can present against. Apollo started looking for bum rep Riney near the witness stand where there was no rubble. Now, it's the no rubble that's kind of statement that we're looking at here, really. Because out of the rest of her testimony, it seems to be more along based with this courtroom number 4 diagram, where we can see that there was a lot of rubble around the stand of the witness. It was more around the entrance where there is no rubble. So I'm guessing this is the obvious thing that we wish to present at this point in time.
Objection!
So we started this search with the witness stand, you say? That's right. I guess maybe he wanted to start from the furthest point in the room. He was being so brave. And strong. But that's odd. Under the circumstances, he shouldn't have been capable of that. But he was, and he still is. He might not look it, but he really is brave. And kind, too. Nope, that's not the part I'm finding fault with. Someone has a crush on Apollo. Yes, she does. What you were claiming is something that no one should have been able to do. But I should think that anyone could be brave and kind if they wanted to be Mr. Wright. True, anyone could be brave and kind, but if you would please take a look at this diagram. With the courtroom in this state, how is it possible to walk up to the witness stand? Oh!
I see your point. The rubble blocks off access to the area around the witness stand.
Does such a tiny inconsistency even matter? Perhaps the witness is simply misremembering it.
Great. Now I'm not so sure it matters.
A real man doesn't make mountains out of molehills, you know.
But that's precisely what Mr. Wright does best.
I call slander, Your Honor.
So, was it really impossible to approach the witness stand? I have to say, it's a bit hard to tell with any accuracy from just this diagram. Mr. Payne, do you have any other photos of the crime scene?
Let me see, Your Honor. Yes, I have one more. Here it is. It's a more pulled back version of the photo I presented before.
We're adding stuff that was definitely not seen before. In fact, we haven't just got the case where the bomb was in it. We also have more to the Woods thing. And that S does not look like an S anymore. Okay. In fact, the 5, it's a 5. When put in perspective with this picture, we can definitely see a 5 and an R. Okay. You're writing down the serial number of that, are you? But that's to say I doubt you've written anything at all. Apollo's assault photo updated in the court record. That it has been. Now this photo is very important. Huh? What's that hunk of metal on wheels? Mr. Payne, is the metallic object in that photo Mr. Tenate's bomb transport case?
That's right. Is there some problem?
Ah, yes. That transport case was there in courtroom number 4 when the bomb went off. It must have been there ever since.
Oh, that's it.
Miss Woods, have you remembered something?
Yes, I just realised. Its position. It's different from before.
Its position? The position of what?
The position of that big metal thing.
The bomb transport case?
Yes. When Apollo and I went there, it was in a different place. But the cases in the photo was open space, so it was easy to search the stand.
In fact, it didn't seem to be there before, either by photo or by cutscene. I see. So what was the transport case when you and Mr. Justice saw it? Though I'm guessing the cutscene didn't really tell us all. Now I need to rewind back the cutscene and see if I'm correct.
As I recall, I think it was more to the right.
To the right? Then that means... in that case, the case was over there at the time of Apollo's attack. Huh.
Who cares where the transport case was when? What difference does it make? It has nothing at all to do with what we were talking about.
Objection!
Where the transport case was has everything to do with this discussion. In fact, it's so important that it's enough to turn the prosecution's argument on its ear.
What?
Well, that certainly sounds very relevant indeed. And you sound as though you know where the case was at the time of the attack.
Yes, Your Honor. This diagram represents the crime scene as shown in the photo. And this is where the transport case was at the time of the assault on Mr. Justice. Alright, I have this. The bomb transport case was here at the time of Apollo's attack. Well, if they... honestly, they'd have seen a message. They would have seen a message and instantly went out. So this is where it's implying, further to the right, is that it was over the message. Because that would have been seen way earlier, even before Apollo went in there. Why is this kind of coming up now? And also, you could have written there, I don't know. But we know that Apollo didn't probably write it. That's a bit weird. Getting conked on the head, you're more likely to go out like a blooming light. That's a dying message if ever I've seen one. So let's present to this position.
Take that!
Your Honor, I said that this is where the transport case was at the time of the assault.
But that's...
Inconceivable!
Miss Woods, was this where the transport case was when you saw it?
Yes. Yes, that's where it was.
Thank you, Miss Woods. I'm sure the court has noted an interesting fact about this position.
The transport case covers up the writing in blood.
Exactly. If the transport case was in that position at the time of the assault, then no message could have been written there, because the case was in the way. Which leads us to conclude that Mr. Justice couldn't have left that bloody writing.
Why should we believe the defendant's claim that the case was in a different position? She's obviously lying.
Objection!
The fact that the case was moved after the assault on Mr. Justice is proved by more than Miss Wood's testimony alone.
What? And where's this proof you're talking about?
It's right here in the crime photo.
I'm keen to see this proof myself, Mr. Wright. What in this photo indicates that the transport case was moved after the assault?
Actually, I don't know. Oh! I'm like looking around going, I legitimately have no clue whatsoever. Is it the broken floor? Could this chunk have gone? Because, you know, this would have proven a bit of an obstacle to the wheels, so I could have got over it. But then, you follow the tracks. In fact, like, there's no tracks technically here either. So that's a bit interesting in and of itself. But I guess this places this being moved after Apollo's body was lying laid out. I say it's that.
Take that!
Tread marks. Dirty, dirty tread marks. Please take a look at the mark that runs over Mr. Justice's bandages here.
I see it, but what is it?
This mark was made by one of the casters from the transport case carrying the bomb. As the case was moved, it ran over his bandages. In other words, the transport case was originally to the right of Mr. Justice. Then after Mr. Justice was assaulted, the transport case was moved.
What?
Just as Miss Wood said, the case was covering the writing at the time of the assault. Therefore, it was impossible for Mr. Justice to have left that message in blood.
No! You did it, boss. It was a real nail-biter, but you pulled it off.
Yep, that should bring down the prosecution's claim like a house of cards.
Order! Order in the court! Mr. Wright, that was a very clever deduction.
Ah, it was nothing, Your Honor. Nothing but pure genius. Take that! Boss, I'm sensing a definite smug and braggy vibe coming off of you. You don't have to put me down.
Nah.
I have just one question, Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor?
If Mr. Justice didn't leave this message in blood, then who did?
Huh? What?
Oh.
Well... looks like I should have taken that train of thought through to the last station.
Well, I've heard a lot about this. So this is Mr. Wright's famous bluffing technique, is it?
Ah, this feeling. It brings back memories of the old days. Back when you carved out a name for yourself by bluffing your way through thick and thin.
Gee, Mr. Wright, the judge kinda makes you sound no better than a 2-bit conman. But I've won those cases.
You made your argument with such confidence, Mr. Wright. Now I'd like to hear your answer with just as much confidence.
Hey, until the judge asked the question, you didn't catch on either, Buster.
What now, boss? I hope you didn't bluff your way into a corner.
Think, Phoenix, think. There must be a way through this. I have to dig my way to the truth somehow. Who could have written that message in blood? Or the culprit, Apollo, or someone else? Well, it could have been the culprit, I guess, but I'm not quite sure where he's getting all the blood from. It doesn't even look like Apollo bled out so badly that Apollo's blood would have been it. So it was before Apollo even got there, so it's got to be someone that was very bloody in the original time of the bomb going off and a certain body being discovered. Deduction, my dear Watson. It wasn't Apollo who could have left the bloody message. Well, it does look like a dying message. When you write something in blood, it doesn't necessarily seem so much of a living person message, does it? Candice Arm. Your time of death was somewhere within the region of 3 hours, was it not? But could it be? Ah, well, whatever. I guess we go with that. I guess if we're doing our legendary bluffing technique anyway.
Take that!
To be honest, I don't actually have any real proof of this. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of that. It's like, But I've come this far. There's no turning back now. Besides Apollo, there was one more person who shed blood at this crime scene.
A person who shed blood? You don't mean...
Oh, but I do. I believe it was Candice Arm who left behind this message in blood.
What?
What? Detective Arm? Are you sure you know what you're doing here? Not really. Well, kind of really, because we've done this so many times before.
Objection! What kind of ridiculous assertion is that? If you had said the attacker left the message to throw people off, it might have made sense.
At first glance, that would seem to be the most reasonable explanation. However, Apollo didn't shed enough blood to write such an extensive message. See, that makes loads of sense.
Uh-oh.
Ah, I see. Even the photo makes it clear there wasn't enough blood to write all those letters. And Mr. Justice did survive. I suppose he didn't bleed very extensively in that case.
But why would Detective Arm write the defendant's name?
There's no connection between the two whatsoever. Well, we've already figured out something involving that.
And I didn't even know the lady who was killed. I admit the investigation didn't turn up any connection between the victim and defendant.
They had never even met each other. Exactly. Establish motive first, Payne. That's very true. Well then, let's see. Then maybe the intended meaning of the message is not what it appears to be.
The intended meaning?
Not what it appears to be?
Maybe the message was not intended to be Woods.
Coming from you, that's quite the bold statement, Mr. Wright. You wish to assert that this bloodied writing could have some other meaning?
Yes, Your Honor. For something I pulled out of a wormhole, it could turn out to be true, right?
Objection! It clearly says Woods, as anyone can plainly see. Whatever meaning could it possibly have?
Objection!
But Candice Arm was a detective. Maybe Woods only means something to the police. Like a police scanner code, for example.
I didn't think of that.
You may have tricked his honor, but you'll never get the best of me.
Well, I can figure out one way to already sort this out already. Just test the blood.
I have a thing for studying on the weekends, as you may have already guessed. And there is no such radio code as Woods in this state, dear Mr. Wright.
Is that a fact? Don't look at me. I know as much as you do about police codes.
Enough of this. I was quite taken with the defense's new theory. But if they can't substantiate it with anything, then I must end things here.
No, please wait, Your Honor.
Very well, but before we discuss this theory any further, I demand a plausible explanation. So, Mr. Wright, what is the true meaning of the bloody writing?
Well, I believe it's...
And no stalling! If you can't come up with an answer quickly, I will declare this discussion officially over.
I'm in trouble now. What other meaning could it have besides the obvious one? Maybe it means something in another language. Or maybe it's a code. Think, Phoenix. You can do this.
Which piece of evidence will tell us what the word Woods really means?
Well, I guess if anything, it's the box. With the number on it. I mean, let's look at this picture again. There's two pictures to look at here. I mean, technically, could we be presenting this or the box? Because you can clearly see there's more writing. It's kind of the other thing. Like, if it is the box, then it's obviously been altered in a way too. So what does the box say on it? L10015R. So the L1's been edited to become a W? And the last one has been edited to be a D, and the R's been taken out. But the 00, it works quite well. I'd say presenting this piece of evidence, but it could be the picture all the same.
Take that! The bomb transport case? I've about had it up to here of your shenanigans, Mr. Wright.
Take a look at the numbers on this case, Your Honor. L10015R. Doesn't this string look vaguely familiar?
L100, what does that have to do with anything?
What could those numbers possibly have to do with the case at hand?
Now please take a look at the bloody writing shown in the crime photo. Oh, I think I see it. That a girl. That's one on my side.
It says Woods.
Or you could say it's a horse of a different colour, Your Honour. The first character isn't a W. It's actually an L and a 1. The next two are zeros.
Oh, my goodness.
But it looks way more like a convincing W. The true meaning behind the bloody writing isn't Miss Wood's name. It's the number engraved on this bomb transport case.
Objection! What are you talking about? The next part doesn't make any sense. The next number is a 1, but the bloody writing says D.
Objection!
But the numbers on the case and the bloody writing can be made to match up quite easily. This is how the number on the transport case can be made to match the bloody writing. So you technically... If the L is written with a weird up flick because, of course, injuries, you technically only erase 2 lines. Not read it backwards. You have to erase the line between the, well, like half of the W, one little prong at the bottom, and you have to raise the curvature for the D, and it instantly becomes L100. We're just missing the last bit, which I'm guessing will become a point of contention soon. Please erase the third downward stroke of the W and the curved part of the D.
Well, would you look at that? L1001S?
No, Your Honour, it isn't meant to be read as a word. It's the number L10015, and you can tell that S was really meant to be a 5. Which, if you take away the final R, is the exact same number that's on the bomb transport case.
Erase 2 lines and they match up, you say? Well, I can change anything into anything else simply by erasing 2 lines. What if we erase 2 lines from your name? Would you be happy as Mr. Rye?
Well, would you, Mr. Rye?
The only right spelling is right. Okay, I'm doing pretty well here, and I think I've drawn the right conclusion. Detective Arm's real message to us is the bomb transport case number. Your Honor, the 2 lines were added by the real culprit to intentionally mislead people.
What?
The original message Detective Arm left behind was the transport case number, but whoever assaulted Apollo changed the message.
If you're right, boss, then what do you suppose Detective Arm was trying to tell us?
Good question. What does this number represent?
Do you see this number here? That is my identification number.
Candace Arm lost her life in the courtroom bombing. A dying message could only have had one purpose.
No!
To tell us the name of the one responsible for the bombing.
Well, don't keep us in suspense, Mr. Wright. Tell us who she was trying to name.
The culprit that the victim was trying to identify is none other than... Where is he? Ted Tonate, of course.
Take that!
The defense wishes to indict Mr. Ted Tonate on the charge of the courtroom bombing. I just realised, like, he's maybe not detonate as in Detective Tonate. Literally, det is Ted backwards.
Ted Tonate?
Apparently, disabling bombs isn't Mr. Tonate's only speciality. Somehow, the victim must have realised that he was the bomber. So when she was caught in the blast, she left his bomb transport case number as a dying message. She used Mr. Tonate's own ID number to finger him for the crime.
Why would anyone go out of their way to write an ID number? Wouldn't they simply write the person's name?
He's got a good point there.
What do you have to say to that, Mr. Wright?
But only Detective Arm would know the answer to that. But allow me to offer a theory. Perhaps Detective Arm couldn't recall Mr. Tonate's name in the heat of the moment. As I recall, this was the first meeting between the two. It's entirely possible they wouldn't have been familiar with each other.
Or maybe using the ID number was a way to hide its true meaning from the real culprit, thus lowering the odds that they would erase the bloody writing.
But no matter what the reason, the important thing is the meaning behind her message. The fact remains, she wrote Mr. Tonate's ID number.
Now, just one moment here. There hasn't been any proof yet that it was indeed Detective Arm who wrote it. The bloody writing wasn't found during the investigation after the blast. If Detective Arm had left the message, it should have been found at that time.
Objection!
But the case was covering it. Naturally, Mr. Tonate hid it before anyone could discover it. And there's a simple explanation for how he was able to do so.
What?
Mr. Tonate was able to cover the message up because he's a stickler for details. The first to find the body, wearing those weird goggles. Well, he did say he was the first to find the body. The first person to discover the bloody writing was Mr. Tonate himself.
I was the first one on the scene after the explosion. I went there to ensure safety, but I ended up discovering a dead body.
When Mr. Tonate saw that the victim had written his ID number, he used the bomb transport case to cover up the bloody writing as a stopgap measure.
Oh, so that's why the message in blood was under the transport case.
He didn't have enough time to try and scrub away the writing. If he didn't report the body right away, he would look suspicious. So those letters lived on to serve another function. And Mr. Tonate used them in another incident.
Oh, the assault on Mr. Justice.
Exactly. Mr. Tonate hit upon a plan to use the bloody writing for his own purposes, so he didn't clean it away. Instead, he made it look like Mr. Justice wrote it, by adding 2 lines to the writing that Detective Arm left behind. He changed the meaning of the message. He made it look like Mr. Justice was accusing Mrs. Woods of the attack.
So that means
The only person who could have altered the bloody writing was the courtroom bummer, who was the same person that assaulted Mr. Justice. And that person is Ted Tennate.
Order in the court! Order, I say! It looks like we'll have to hear from the bomb specialist himself. Mr. Payne, please have Mr. Tennate take the witness stand.
Yes, Your Honor.
That was great, Mr. Wright. Just doing what I do best, which is flying by the seat of my pants.
Dismantling the case is yours. Do you think you can handle it? I look forward to seeing you try.
I finally drawn Mr. Tennate back onto the witness stand. Looks like you get your wish, Goggle Man. Now watch me take your lies apart.
Bring forth Goggle Man.
We have to hope that that really truly is a GameCube there instead of a bomb, though.
Mr. Tennate, I'm afraid we have a few more questions for you.
I understand the situation, Your Honor. I was keeping a close eye on the proceedings from the gallery. The allegations are all laughable.
Objection!
I wouldn't be laughing if I were you, Mr. Tennate. The message in blood matches your ID number. Oh, cool. Same ID number that is there on that bomb transport case.
Such a far-fetched theory. No better than a tangled ball of wires.
I'll have them untangled for you in no time at all. He's got a suave voice otherwise, hasn't he? Now he has, anyway. You were the first person on the scene after Detective Arm left a message in blood. You were the only one who could have hidden the writing and then used it again later.
I see ×2. But then, let me ask you. Do you have any proof that Detective Arm wrote that message?
That's a very good question. Well, do you, Mr. Wright?
The best way to prove that Detective Arm wrote that message is to analyze the DNA! Well, you could do the handwriting too, I guess. The DNA makes way more sense. Your Honor, I request that a DNA test be performed on the blood itself. Once we know whose it is, it'll be obvious as to who wrote the message.
Very well. Bailiff, please put in a request for a DNA test with the forensics team.
Yes, Your Honor.
It will be some time before we have the results of the analysis. Until then, let's hear more from the witness.
I would like nothing more, Your Honor. I want the court to hear how ridiculous the defense's theory is.
There's no need to be mean about it, but after the explosion, what happened, Mr. Tennate?
I admit I was the first one on the scene after the explosion, but there was no bloody writing there at the time. Anyway, there is no way Detective Arm could have written it. She struck her head on rubble and died near the courtroom entrance. She was too far away from where the bloody message was found.
Okay. So you're saying that the victim's body was nowhere near where the writing was?
Precisely. It is as plain as day that she could not have written it. It's true that the body was discovered near the entrance to the courtroom. Please have a look at this crime scene photo. As you can see, there is a blood on the rubble near the victim's body. She must have died after hitting her head there.
Right, the courtroom bombing photo has been added to the court record, though it's a good time for me to actually look back at some stuff at this point. We're talking about the body, after all.
I see. All right then, Mr. Wright. You may cross-examine the witness.
Well, before we do, let us just quickly take a peek at the court record, because one of the things that's always been surprising to me was the estimated time of death had quite a long time between it. So apart from that, trauma to back of head caused by impact with a flat object. Time of death between 8 AM and 11 AM. That just got added, so this is an important photo. So you say a flat object, but that can't be it then, because that's a spiky object. That is a jagged rock edge that seems to be covered in blood. That would do a lot more damage, let's put it that way. So is this the point we're looking at, considering, of course, we should always look at generally the new evidence that's been presented to us at this point in time? That is the question.
Do you have what it takes to take my infallible testimony apart?
Well, I think we do, Mr. Tenate. I think you're underestimating a certain Phoenix Wright. We'll begin pressing. We'll begin unraveling this and working out which one to actually present to, because hopefully we can get more of a statement out next time on Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies. Join me then for more. Bye-bye.